Go.
What's good, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Coast to Coast podcast, Week 17 edition, aka Garbage Time edition. We're going to start with the most absolute biggest blowout I've seen all year. 56 points dropped by the Buffalo Bills on an actually good defense. Um, I mean, a pretty solid defense throughout the entire season. The Miami Dolphins, just an absolute offensive showcase from mostly the backups on the Bills. I mean, you had Matt Barkley out there, tossing touchdowns, throwing dimes. But what do you have to say about this one, Liam?
I think one thing that you got to point out here is especially Tua Tagovailoa, especially in a game where Ryan Fitzpatrick's out and, there's a lot of pressure on him. He was expected to put up a good fight this game and, prove that he is worth over that 5th overall pick, especially taking over against Herbert, who's going to, end up winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year. But a really bad outing from him in general, just bad to see. But this Buffalo team continues to impress. They have my bet for the money line this week to beat Colts. Just such a firepower offense, and I think the defense is going to come around. But Gabriel Davis, 2 receptions, 107 yards, and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs continues to get receptions, and Isaiah McKenzie coming out of nowhere with 2 receiving touchdowns and a punt return touchdown. But I think the biggest surprise, Jose and I were talking about this before the podcast, Antonio Williams, 12 carries, 63 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I don't know who this guy was. If you put a gun to my head and told me asked me who he is, take my life. So, yeah.
Yeah, going off of what Liam said, I think, the Bills look great. I also want to take the money line. I'm a little nervous about the spread just because I think the Colts have been playing pretty well the last couple of weeks, and they do have a legit defense as well. They've been looking good like the last few weeks. And also, Allen's been great, but he still hasn't proven anything in the playoffs, so there's that factor as well. But they just look outstanding and look like, we all need Chiefs Bills. Like, that's the matchup we all need for sure. I was really disappointed in Tua. I like seeing him getting full workload, just letting him go out there. But I mean, the con was that he really wasn't good at all. He had a 26 QBR, and just I think they overachieved as a team this season, but it still is a little weird to see him not really show too much too much optimism for next season. I don't know if they're going to keep rolling with him or they're going to look for someone else. They could pull another Josh Rosen with him. We'll see, but I'm still rooting for Tua. Devontae Parker had a good game. He had 18.6 points. Gesicki, kind of had a bust again. He followed up 2 20-point weeks with 2 9-point weeks. And then you guys mentioned the 2, weeks, most typical week 17, fantasy. There's a reason why, most leagues don't play on week 17 because you got guys like Isaiah McKenzie and Antonio Williams who no one's heard of going off for, McKenzie dropped 30 points and then Williams, 2 touchdowns on CR. Austin Singletary weren't even getting that much work. But, the Bills, in a game where they weren't even playing their starters, the fact that they blew them out this much is insane. And I think, they probably should have even lost them because I think if they would have lost, they probably would have ended up playing them in the playoffs, I think, instead of the Colts. And I would much rather play this team instead of the Colts. So, kind of worked in as a disadvantage, but just good to see them, the Bills rolling even with their, second stringers in.
Yeah, because I know they had the tiebreaker over the Steelers because the Steelers lost, so they would have had the seat. But, I mean, I think this game finished really early, so there's no way they would have known. I mean, they're not just going to start letting up 30 points instantly. But, yeah, they would have loved to play this team compared to the Colts.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I mean, it's they won by a lot, but in the end, if they end up losing to the Colts, they could have ultimately screwed themselves.
Yeah. But it's still good to end this season going into the playoffs with a massive win like this as well.
Yeah, at least give them confidence too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But moving on to the next game, Baltimore defeating Cincinnati 38-3, just another absolute blowout from, a legit playoff team against a irrelevant team at this point. Brandon Allen with 48 yards and 2 picks, just stat line of the year, QBR of 3. But yeah,
rating of 0.
Dobbins with a massive game. Pretty much just, the show on this game. What do you guys have to say about this one?
I'll start off since Liam went last time. the Ravens, like, this is what they do. Like, they beat up on terrible teams. Like, this was, like, no surprise. And I mean, we'll go to the Bengals real quick. Yeah, just an absolute, like, shit show. I mean, coming off of 371 yards last week, I mean, Allen throws like 48 yards, dropping negative 1.88 fantasy points. No one had more than 3 catches or 9 fantasy points. And then as for the Ravens, Dobbins went off, Lamar, and then Hollywood Brown as well. They were all over 20 points. Everyone else was kind of lackluster, but Dobbins, really gaining a lot of draft stock for next year for sure. And then, Lamar only 113 passing yards, but still dropping 24 points because he had 3 passing touchdowns and then 90 on the ground. And then Hollywood Brown, catching 2 touchdown passes. So, yeah, Ravens, this is what they do, man. They beat up on the bad teams, and we'll see how they do in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing to say on Cincinnati's side. I mean, T. Higgins was held without a catch. Tyler Boyd was had 1 catch for 1 yard and then an 11-yard rush. Those 2 guys, I think, with Joe Burrow hopefully coming back nice and healthy next season at the start, they should be, back up there in fantasy value. And don't forget Joe Mixon. I expect Joe Mixon is going to fall in drafts since he's been out for so long and his name hasn't been talked about. I mean, like you said, you'll see guys like Dobbins probably take a leap over him, which won't surprise me because Dobbins has really showed out. He's been a touchdown scorer, I think, in the last 6 weeks, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I think for this team, they had the most intriguing playoff matchup. You got Derrick Henry matching up against the Baltimore Ravens, who we remember last time they played, Derrick Henry went out of his mind, made Earl Thomas his lead blocker. But it'll be interesting to see. This Ravens defense is much improved now. They got Patrick Queen, who's a stud linebacker out of LSU. And I think someone, along the lines of Calais Campbell should be good at run stopping, a big force, should be able to hopefully limit Derrick Henry's abilities. But when it comes down to it, Derrick Henry's a matchup nightmare. And you hope that this Baltimore team can be able to pick apart a really bad Tennessee defense who's been terrible against the pass and the rush this year. So expect, it's probably going to be a shootout. I would expect that this Tennessee offense is going to be one that's hard to stop regardless. And I did take Tennessee money line as just the one to see, because I think that when it comes down to it, I don't know if this team has enough yet. I think they're still missing, a wide receiver option. I mean, because as good as that secondary isn't for the Tennessee Titans, they do have some speedsters at corners who should be able to slow down the big playability of Marquise Brown. So it's all going to come down to the run game, what I think is going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah, I mean, for both teams, pretty much.
Yeah.
The run game's going to determine. But moving on to our AFC North matchup, Pittsburgh versus Cleveland. Cleveland barely edging this one out by 2 points. What a great season for them. 11 wins tallied. I mean, it was pretty much I think the Steelers had already locked up the division before this game, so they benched Roethlisberger. But what do you have to say about this one, Liam?
I mean, yeah, you see no TJ Watt, no Cameron Haywood, and the Cleveland just, was able to get away. A really close win, though. I mean, Baker Mayfield had that QB run there at the end. I was able to seal it. I was really happy to see, Cleveland finally make it, just a couple years removed from being the worst team in football, tied for the worst record of all time. But it's going to be interesting. They're matching up again next week. And I think a lot of people think that Cleveland's, not going to do it. Would make sense, though, because we haven't seen, this full strength Pittsburgh team go against. I mean, they didn't win against the Browns earlier in the year and beat them. But, it'll be interesting to see with, TJ Watt out there. He's going to be wrecking havoc on that offensive line. And I know Wyatt Teller, their star guard, Pro Bowl guard this year, is out for Cleveland this week. And, without, such receiving talent, it's going to be heavier on this run game to see who's going to be able to come out with a victory.
Yeah, definitely. I still like the Steelers just because, Ben's got the experience, Tomlin, they've been there before, and the Browns, they haven't. This was it's crazy because this literally could have been the Browns' worst nightmare. They literally almost a few weeks ago, it seemed like they were in prime position for the first wild card spot. And then, this week they literally had to win or else they were not going to make the playoffs. So good for them, barely pulling it out, but they finally got it done. Chubb had a solid game with 16.8 points. He capped off a great second half of the season. He didn't have anything less than double-digit fantasy points from like week 10 on. So he's been an amazing second half player. Jarvis with like a typical Jarvis game, he's like 5 for 51. Got lucky with like a rushing touchdown though, which kind of helped. And then Hunt was kind of a bust as well, only had 5 points. I'm actually surprised, like you mentioned all the guys that the Steelers sat. I'm surprised they didn't sit their receivers. Claypool, Johnson, and Juju, all three of them played, and they all like played most of the game. Claypool was like the best one out of the three, had 5 for 101, a touchdown. And yeah, I'm just surprised they play. But I think I like Claypool the most. Looking towards next season, I think I like Claypool the most out of all three of those guys. I think, I don't know where they're going to be in the rankings because I think all three of them are very, very, close. They seem to put up, like, especially the second half, they've been like very close in points. But I think I like Claypool the most. Just like Deontay is very, very boomer bust. And Juju kind of has a low ceiling. So I like Claypool the most. But yeah, I'm just excited to see the Browns in the playoffs. I want to see like what happens. I don't know if like Baker's going to choke or they're going to be competitive. I have no idea how they're going to play. So yeah, I'm excited for like probably one of the most exciting games for wildcard weekend is this one.
And I hope they stick to the game plan that they've created their entire year and not, veer away from it like we've seen them do, because I think it works for them when they stick to their run game and they use that to spread, their receivers out. That works for them, especially against the Steelers secondary. But
yeah, don't make Baker do too much. Like bare minimum, just get Chubb going, get Hunt, some catches out the backfield, let him run the ball a bit. Exactly. Don't let Baker mess it up.
I'm checking right now. I don't know. I think Denzel Ward has been injured recently. Hopefully he can be back for this game. Maybe he's back. I don't know. But I know that if he's back, that's going to help because that Cleveland secondary is god-awful.
Yeah. Speaking of bad secondaries, moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' absolute slaughter of the Atlanta Falcons, 44-27. Tom Brady a yard short of 400 through the air. This offense just seems to be clicking on all cylinders. I mean, through the air, on the ground, it seems like they can pretty much, give it to you however you want it. But, Tom Brady been clicking these past few weeks. What do you have to say about this one, Carson?
Yeah, I mean, you said Brady, he went freaking nuclear, dropped another 30-point game. It's usually been Mike Evans and Gronk getting the receiving touchdowns this year, but this week AB and Godwin, it was their turn to shine. Both of them went absolutely insane. AB got that bonus. That was so clutch by Brady to do that for him. But dropped a vintage AB game. I mean, 11 catches, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, 38 points. Monster game. And then Godwin as well. Doing what he was doing a lot last season with Winston. 5 catches, 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. He dropped 30 points. Besides those two and Brady, no one else really did that much, but they didn't have to because they blew the Falcons out. The Falcons, we don't really have to talk about them too much. I mean, Russell Gage had a nice game, 25 points. Besides that, not really anything. But yeah, you guys mentioned it, like the Bucs, they look really, really scary. Their defense is legit. They have so many weapons. And yeah, I'm excited to see where they go because they if they make the Super Bowl, I would not be surprised. They have the talent.
There's a lot of people skeptical whether or not Washington has a chance against them. I really don't see any chance. I think this team's so high-powered. Looking at it, you got like 4 Pro Bowl level receivers on your team with Gronk. He's had some flashes of that, and then obviously Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Brown. But then, I think it's just unstoppable. I mean, especially with that backfield, Leonard Fournette also, tends to go off every once in a while. And Ronald Jones is almost an 1,000-yard rusher this season if he was healthy. But taking a look at Atlanta, going into the next season, I think, we'll dive into this obviously in later episodes. But Todd Gurley, I would not consider him at all. Maybe even in the last round, I wouldn't even consider him. I don't think he's going to have any value next year. They're probably going to cut him this offseason. I wouldn't be surprised. But on this Falcons team, though, it's going to be interesting to see the future going into the offseason. I know they got to hire a new head coach and to see where Julio Jones goes. Is Julio Jones going to stick around in Atlanta? Is he going to be traded or is he going to retire? He's going to pull Calvin Johnson. I think if he does go, someone like Russell Gage could be, a breakout candidate next year alongside Calvin Ridley. So something interesting to point out, but we'll dive into in later episodes.
The Bucks, if you can get them at -10 or below, take that, please, because I really feel like the Bucks, and especially their money line, throw their money line in any parlays, because I think, knock on wood, but I think this seems like the easiest pick 'em. This is like the most logical one where it's like, if the Bucks lose, it's like, holy crap, like what the heck? Like every other game, I can like see one side or the other. I can take arguments. I can't see any way that the football team is going to beat this Bucks team, especially the way they've been playing recently. Like, got them put the house on the Bucks.
Yeah, they're a great story though. Obviously, Alex Smith, is great, but
yes,
Alex
no
Smith
discredit to them, but
what Alex Smith?
No discredit to the football team, but yeah, come on.
But is he back?
I think he's back. I think he's supposed to be playing this week.
Dude, that's crazy.
I think he's going to start.
Starting in a playoff game, his first season back. That's insane. And
that's
then
incredible.
If he wins that game, I mean,
I'll tune into it for a little bit. If it's a blowout, I'm not watching it.
I think they're an OC and a Jimmy Garoppolo away from like a real playoff run.
I think they got to trade up
their quarterback.
If there's a team that's in the top 5 that is not going to go quarterback and looking to trade down, they should look into it, because I think they can maybe trade one of their defensive line pieces. Probably not Aussie, not Chase Young, probably not Jonathan Allen, but if you can maybe get one of them. I think a quarterback is extremely valuable. To see someone like, if Terry McLaurin gets a quarterback this offseason, he's my wide receiver 1 next year, 100%.
All right, moving on to the Green Bay Packers defeating the Chicago Bears 35-16. I mean, another offense that just seemed to be clicking, at the right time. Aaron Rodgers with a casual 4 touchdowns and only 5 incompletions, which is insane to even say. But what do you have to say about this one, Liam?
I mean, just absolutely crazy. Aaron Rodgers, the story this year. People were saying Jordan Love was the most valuable draft pick because it just sparked this fire in this guy. How all these reports coming out of Green Bay that Aaron Rodgers was so upset that they had drafted this guy, and then to go out and draft AJ Dillon instead of drafting a wide receiver. But I think Jordan Love obviously hasn't put any on-field value, but I think AJ Dillon, he's going to be someone that going in the next season, especially if Aaron Jones gets let go with his last game performance. But just looking at this game though, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, the deep threat himself, 2 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. But spreading the wealth, Devontae Adams got a touchdown, Tunyon got a touchdown, and Dominique Daphne got a touchdown. But despite this loss though, the Bears will be playing the Saints in the wild card round this weekend. Will be interesting because the Saints notoriously known for their playoff woes. Maybe not by their fault. Some bad calls. We'll see how that goes. Exactly. The doinker. So we'll see. I think this Packers team though has a lot of promise, but it's going to take some. It's going to have to see some good playoff performances by them in that first divisional round if I'm going to have faith in them winning the Super Bowl, because they still year in year out there's always something going wrong, and they still have to prove that this run defense is much more improved.
Yeah, I mean the Packers, winning another ring for Rodgers, it's all going to be on their defense, because we know what Rodgers can do. In the playoffs, he's one of the greatest to ever do it. So it's really just going to be on how well their defense is going to play. Because I think like the Bucs, I mean they're just clicking so well on offense, and you have such an elite quarterback and elite receiver. Just their offense is crazy. So it's they're, especially of course their run defense really has to hunker down for them to make a run. But for the Bears, I don't know. I don't really have any. And also the Packers just absolutely own the Bears. It seems like the last 3 years they've beaten them every time. I don't know. I don't really have much stock in the Bears against the Saints, even though the Saints, Breeze has been on and off. He's been showing his age. I still can't take the Bears. I can't put money on them. Trubisky and the Bears were a huge betting favorite this week, just because they felt like the Packers would take it off, and of course Trubisky, typical Trubisky, lost people their money. But I don't know. I just don't have any stock. Let's see. I mean, Montgomery still, speaking of stock, he's another guy like Dobbins that, next year is going to get a lot of hype just because of how he finished the season. Mooney as well. I mean, Mooney, 11 catches. I know that's someone that Liam really, really loved. And he's a deep sleeper for sure. But yeah, Packers. Honestly, I said the Saints. I kind of think I need Packers Bucks. Packers Bucks, Chiefs Bills. Like, I'd be chill with that. That'd be dope.
I know I bet on Seattle for my money line in my bet, but I want to see the Rams go against the Packers so bad. I need to see Jalen Ramsey versus Devontae Adams. I feel like that'd be a great matchup to see one of the most physical corners we've seen in so long. And he's one of the best corners in the league this year, especially go against the most unguardable player this season next to Diggs.
And home field advantage is going to be crucial.
Yeah. But shout out to Montgomery on a strong finish to his season. Definitely raising his stock for next year.
And don't forget, Tariq Cohen's going to be back, so he might steal a lot of those backfield receptions. So
I totally forgot about him, to be honest.
True.
He was a PPR master a few years ago.
Yeah, in his day, he was a monster. Moving on to the Colts defeating the Jaguars 28-14. Is this Jonathan Taylor or is this Derrick Henry at this point? I mean, 30 carries, over 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it seems like anyone can just run for 200 yards on the Jags at this point. But one of my most hyped up players for next year. I'm definitely putting so much stock in him. What do you have to say about this one, Liam?
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, I think Jonathan Taylor has been one of the rookie running backs who's showed out. I mean, it's no surprise to me at Wisconsin. He was arguably one of the best backs in that school's history, given that they had Melvin Gordon, who almost won a Heisman there. Pretty crazy to see. But it'll also be interesting to see how that works. Is Naheem Hines going to come back? Is Marlon Mack, he's still he's a pending free agent this offseason. I expect him to go to another team, probably like the Jets. The Jets are going to probably going to go to a pick like Travis Etienne or something. They're going to go something more safe like Marlon Mack, who's been a 1,000-yard rusher in the past. But some people for this Indianapolis Colts team that I'm looking forward to in the future, Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman Jr. I expect him to, start to break out. He showed a lot of promise in USC, and he had a really good game this year. I think it was against the Packers, if I recall. But I don't know if I have too much faith in this team in the playoffs. I think it's all going to run in their defense. They're going against the Bills, so if DeForest Buckner and Darius Leonard and those boys, and Kenny Moore, who's been the interception guy for them, can go out there and stop the Bills, it'll be an interesting game, but one that I'll be zooming into. But Carson.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really intrigued to see what they do against the Bills. I can easily see the Bills like blowing them out, but I can also easily see Indianapolis just like chewing up clock. I think this team is, you mentioned Henry. They're very, very similar to last year's Titans team where, quarterbacks like, okay, but it's really they're going to win on their defense and their running game, just keeping the ball away from, the other team. Taylor just like, what a weird season. I mean, this guy was like practically almost benched like halfway through the season. Like, I mean, Hines, I forgot they had like this Wilkins, like they were giving
Jordan
him
Wilkins.
run. Yeah, like it was just so weird. And he had a lot of hype solid amount of hype coming in. It was decent in the beginning, then just roller coaster season for him, but good to see him ending it on just a monster note.
1,000-yard season.
Crazy. He finished third overall rushing. That's what the heck? Ridiculous. Just a crazy season for him. Rivers, I don't know that's the thing. I don't know what he's going to do. I could see him absolutely just being annihilated by the Bills defense. So we'll see. But yeah, good win. Hey, good win for the Colts. And the Jags, I mean, they're so uninteresting. No one really did anything, but let's see what Trevor can do. Or Fields.
It's not going to be Fields. I love Fields, but Trevor's going to be good.
Yeah,
it's going to raise the stock of Chenault. It's going to raise the stock of James Robinson and Chark. Something interesting to see.
Those guys are probably going to get overdrafted, honestly.
Yeah, it's going to depend on who their coach is, though. I mean, I know Urban Meyer's one that's been a hot name. I've been watching a lot of videos talking about who they think is going to be there. I know I forgot the name of him, but the Bills' offensive coordinator is a really hot name right now. And then, I mean, they're not going to get Salah. Salah's going to go to like the Lions or something like that. So
Can
we'll
Salah
see.
stay on the Niners, please? We don't need him going anywhere.
I'd love him to stay, but
Can we get him on the Cowboys, please?
Yeah, y'all could
Oh
use
God.
him.
Oh
That would
God.
suck.
Moving on to a really weird NFC West matchup. I mean, the Rams pretty much had to win this game. Their backs against the wall, 18-7. But really just a weird win. I mean, they both had their backup QBs playing. It's just a weird win for the Rams here. Do you guys have anything to say about this game?
Carson?
Just a disappointing like win or go home game. I mean, I think, I don't know if this was the only I think it was like the only winner go home game for like both teams, and just like just weird. Like you want to see like a much more competitive game. I mean, obviously Goff and then Murray's, they're like both injured, but yeah, just like a massive letdown. Like and so much of a letdown. I don't even really want to talk about it that much, honestly.
I watched this entire game, sadly enough, and it was just really sad because I put money on Cardinals to win because I thought with John Wolford starting and the way he started the game with that interception that eventually led to a touchdown scored, it really hurt that Kyler Murray ended up getting hurt in that first drive. Really hurt me. But this is going to be an interesting Rams team going to the playoffs. I've heard a lot about how deadly they can be, but I think this offense is still skeptical because Jared Goff's had a lot of woes in the recent weeks. But, good to see that they had 2 10-sack plus sack guys on their defense. What's his name? Leonard Floyd, came from Chicago. He was cut by the team and then ended up playing better than his replacement, Robert Quinn, which is funny enough. But, with Aaron Donald, nothing's impossible. It's going to be interesting to see how the Seattle O-line, that's been one that struggled for years, can handle Aaron Donald because Russell Wilson is going to be running around like a madman. And especially with that secondary, who's been, the Baltimore secondary of last year with Jalen Ramsey, with John Johnson, with Darius Williams, with Troy Hill, who's had 2 pick sixes this year. Seattle's going to have their work cut out for them, and will be definitely a game I tune into this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Seattle, we're going to go ahead and move on to their win over the 49ers, 26-23. Just, an edge win here. Jeff Wilson with a pretty solid game. I mean, is he your guys' like starter going forward now? I mean,
I need most
just whoever's healthy, dude. Whoever's healthy.
But yeah, not a great performance from really anyone on the Seahawks aside from Tyler Lockett, having one of his vintage performances from the beginning of the season. But yeah, I'm just really not excited for this Seahawks team in the playoffs like I have been in the past. I mean, they did win 12 games, but I just feel like they don't have it this year.
Yeah, it all lies on the hands of the health for this team. I know Jamal Adams has been one that's questionable to return for this weekend. Hopefully they have him because, his presence is one that is really felt on this Seahawks defense. And as him and Carlos Dunlap have been a reason why they've had this midseason turnaround as their defense. But going in the next season, it's going to be interesting to see where DK and Tyler find themselves. At one point in the year, they were ranked I think Tyler Lockett was ranked number 1 wide receiver and DK was ranked number 4. I think this was following Tyler Lockett's big game against Arizona. But, yeah, like you said, there's not too much hype around the Seattle team. At the beginning of the year, this offense was firepower. I mean, I know DK Metcalf still broke Steve Largen's Seahawks franchise record for most receiving yards in the season, and Tyler Lockett broke the receptions in the season. But, just a really poor finish for this offense. And now this defense is the one that somehow find their way in the headlines as the better part of this team. But it's going to be how things go. Whoever gets lucky in the Seattle Rams game for me.
Yeah, definitely. It's like whoever's defense is going to step up the most. The Seahawks are just, really weird because, their defense was terrible. And at the beginning of the season, their offense was great. And now their offense has just looked really, really lackluster and boring. And their defense, not even really great. I mean, they're much better than they were at the beginning of the season, but not like the great, defense of the Legion of Boom days, So just a weird team. It's just so hard for me to bet against them just because of Russ. And like, we all know what, Russ can just take over a game and, win in crunch time. But they just do not look good. And yeah, I just don't really feel like it's their year as well. It's just still going to be hard for me to bet against them just because of Russ, even though I don't really like them that much at all as a contender.
Mm-hmm. And I think this San Fran team has a lot of questions to answer in the offseason. What are they going to do at quarterback? I know a lot of people, there's a mixed emotions amongst at least the 49ers fan base. Do we trust Garoppolo to lead this team back to, where we found ourselves in the Super Bowl last year? Or, are we going to go Zach Wilson? I think Zach Wilson's going to be one that we have to trade up to get. So are we willing, to give up assets to get a quarterback? It'll be interesting to see, and also health has really screwed us this year. With Nick Bosa returning next year and, getting George Kittle back at full strength and Mostert in this run game, hopefully we can get back to, being fighting for the top of this division. But, a good season from Fred Warner. I know Carson and I have been happy about this. He should find himself in the all-pro first team. He's been absolute dominant, in the run game, in the pass game, one of the most versatile middle linebackers in this league. But, hopefully – this 49ers team, can see Brandon Ayuk break out next year if, he's able to stay healthy, him and Debo. But, it's been an interesting season with a lot of up and downs. But, as a 49ers fan, I just want to have faith that these guys can get back to that Super Bowl form.
Yeah, I'm just glad the season's over so our guys can rest, man. Like, just rest.
Yeah, moving on to an absolute thriller. The Tennessee Titans taking this game away from the Houston Texans with seconds to go with rookie kicker Samuel Sloman, who was cut earlier in the season by the Rams, nailing a doink that went in this time. Just what a game. A.J. Brown with that catch to put them in position. What do you have to say about this one, Liam?
Yeah, I originally taken the -7.5 spread. I think this was a bad choice for me, especially with Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt just being, the players they are right here. Brandon Cooks, though, an absolutely monster game. His value will definitely decrease, if Will Fuller does find his way back on the team next season. But still, 11 receptions, 166 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I believe he secured himself, as wide receiver 1 and the overall number 1 player in fantasy this week. But, Deshaun Watson, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, interception. He finds himself as the league leader in passing yards this season. But, David Johnson, they end up coming back and having a pretty solid, I think, final 3 games, getting a lot of receiving work out there and scoring some touchdowns. But, someone that maybe I'll look into as a deep flex next season. But A.J. Brown, though, love to see the way this boy plays. Him and McLaurin, I got crushes on these boys for next season. Hopefully they come out there. Pause. But, 10 receptions, 151 yards, and a touchdown. Just absolutely great game from him. And then Derrick Henry, Mr. 2K himself.
Yeah, I second Liam. I'm an A.J. Brown stan for sure. He's been incredible this year. Just poor Watson, man. I'm really interested. Like, I kind of want the Texans to just blow it up. J.J. Watt literally said it. Like, if you guys saw that clip, he's like, we wasted one of your years. And that's a fact. It's just so sad to see someone this talented and this elite. He literally led the league in passing yards. We'll get to that in a sec. And they're going 4-12. And it just feels like there's really no hope at all. They're not even getting their picks. I feel like, just trade Watson. You're going to get an insane package for him. You're going to get a ton of picks, maybe some play. You're going to get you get a whole team for Watson. That's how good he is. So I just want to see them blow it up. I just really want to see Watson on a contender and, getting deep in the playoffs. And then, the Titans, Tannehill was whatever. But yeah, just Henry and Brown, just monsters, freaking monsters, bro.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Henry owns real estate in the the Texans organization.
He owns. I think I saw a stat. He would have been 9th in the league in rushing with 1,000-something yards if he only played the NFC South. Only the NFC South, because he had 3 200-yard games against the NFC South, which
he owns that division, bro. It's ridiculous.
But no. I was going to go off what you're saying about Watson. I saw something that he actually is not be able to get traded this offseason because his cap hit's too high, so the penalty wouldn't work out there. So he will have to stick it out another year in Houston. And, they would have had the 3rd overall pick. Imagine what they could have gotten with that. They could have gotten their DeAndre Hopkins replacement with either Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith. So just think about that.
Wait, can Watson be traded at the deadline, or does he have to go a whole another season?
I have no idea. I just know this offseason he can't get traded because his cap hits too high and they're too deep in the cap. But I know they got I mean, I think you guys all saw that tweet. Deshaun Watson was, crypto tweeting about the Texans' new hire at general manager. Another Patriot, I believe their assistant general manager, obviously Bill O'Brien came from the Belichick tree, but let's see how this GM handles this nasty situation here in Houston.
Yeah. Moving on to another nasty situation, Washington defeating the Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC East with a negative record, 7-9 for a first-place team. I mean, Jalen Hurts getting benched for Modesto native represent Nate Sudfeld.
Oh, let's go.
But yeah, just what an absolute shame for the Eagles this game. Just disgusting football. I mean, after playing pretty well the past few weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks from Jalen Hurts, and just getting benched like that, and losing to Washington, just no words at this point. Like, what more can you expect from the Eagles?
Carson, anything?
Hey man, don't take anything for granted. Like, this team literally won the Super Bowl like 3 years ago. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah, just shameful the fact that yeah, the fact that it was just shameful the fact that they were like blatantly tanking on live television, like on prime time, just insane. Yeah, just terrible, bro. I really would have loved if there were fans in the stands, because the Philly fans would have absolutely turned on this team. It would have been pandemonium. They probably would have been chanting, Washington. They would have been, everyone's throwing stuff out on the field. It would have been insane, because this was just like a disgrace to the organization, the fans, the city. Like, ridiculous, bro.
Yeah, especially seeing how Nate Sudfeld played. I mean, he wasn't doing anything out there. I mean, watching that final drive, he was throwing checkdowns when they had to get down the field. Just embarrassing.
Yeah.
But I want to know the odds if you bet that JJ Arcega-Whiteside would be their leading receiver. I want to know how much money he'd make. But this team definitely is going to blow up this offseason. Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz, I know Jason Kelsey, all three of them. There's a big viral, pictures of them sitting down the link at the end of the game, late till like 1 a.m. just talking. But, the magic that this team had, back when Nick Foles was leading drives against Tom Brady, there's no longer. Hopefully Jalen Hurts, can go into this offseason. It's going to be interesting to see. Doug Peterson's definitely on the hot seat as one of the coaches in this league. So a lot of questions to answer in Philadelphia.
And if Washington would have lost this game, who would have won the division? Because there would have been
the Giants.
3, 6, and
10.
Yeah, the Giants. The Giants
they had the tiebreaker.
Players were pissed. That was so funny on Twitter.
Oh yeah, it was Eli Manning was tweeting at it.
Everyone was getting into it.
That's so dumb. What a division, man! What a story for this division.
Crazy, bro. I can't believe it's actually like a real division.
I mean, it's stupid that they still let them in. Like, even though they won their division, I think it should just be like the best records.
And they get to host a playoff game. They get to host.
Exactly. But
wild, bro.
Moving on here to our fantasy team of the week, the final team of the week for week 17. Starting off, Mr. Hair Don't Fit in the Frame, Cam Newton. And our RB1 this week, JT, Jonathan Taylor, 38 points. Derrick Henry with, a usual Derrick Henry game, 35. Brandon Cooks putting damn near 40 on the board. Marvin Jones putting another 38-point game. Well, not another, but another monster game. Darren Waller, not new to this week at all, but not new to the team of the week, but 26.7. And Antonio Brown, a little throwback for the boy, 36.8. The Rams defense, doing what they do, pretty much won the game for them. But, yeah, and then Fairbairn, 17 points for a total of 290.98.
That's a lot for week 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very AFC heavy, I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, definitely. All right. Dive into some stat leaders in that team of the year. Zay, take it away. You got the notes pulled up?
Hold up. No, I don't.
Okay, then I'll take it. All right.
You,
So
you,
For sure.
you got the fantasy team of the year, but I'll take so the end of the stat leaders. Just wanted to throw these out there. Not too relevant to fantasy, but overall in the NFL, just some things to point out here. For passing yards, as mentioned earlier, Deshaun Watson with 4,823, absolute crazy season for him. Really electric in these last few weeks. That's what's got him there. Passing touchdowns, Aaron Rodgers, 48 touchdowns. Just a great season from him. His career high, which is crazy to see this late in his career. Total touchdowns again, Aaron Rodgers with 51. He had also added 3 rushing on the ground. Rushing yards, though, Derrick Henry, 2,027. I think it's the 4th highest of all time, something along that line. I mean, he also added some decent scrimmage yards in there too. Overall, rushing TDs, Derrick Henry was 17. Back-to-back seasons leading with rushing yards and rushing TDs. In yards per carry, though, J.K. Dobbins came on late in the year and averaged 6 yards a carry. Receiving yards, Jose's boy himself, Stephon Diggs, 1,535 receiving yards for the former Vikings receiver. Receiving TDs, though, did go to Devontae Adams, absolute stud this year. Receptions, again, Stephon Diggs, 127, which, equates to 127 points just in PPR in general, which, would put you as like tight end 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Tackles, though, Zach Cunningham of the Texans, not too big of a stat to look at, but sacks and TFLs did go to TJ Watt, 15 sacks and 26 TFLs, led the league, obviously, in both. Interesting to see. He will probably run away with his defensive player of the year due to fatigue, with Aaron Donald. But interceptions, though, Xavier Howard with 10, definitely going to find himself on that all-pro first team. But, yeah, without further ado, we'll take a look at the fantasy team of the year, brought to you by Jose.
Man, shout out Jose, bro. You dropped like a 40-point triple-double with this graphic.
Hey, but leading off, we got my boy Josh Allen, Valley native, 46 total touchdowns on the season, surpassing 4,500 yards through the air for an average of 24.75 points a game. At RB1, we've got Alvin Kamara, 21 total touchdowns and 1,688 yards from scrimmage for an average of over 25 points a game. RB2, we got Dalvin Cook with 17 total touchdowns, 1,900 scrimmage yards, and 24.13 average yards per game. Wide receiver 1, Devontae Adams, 18 total touchdowns and 1,374 receiving yards for an average of 25.6 fantasy points a week. And Tyreek Hill as our wide receiver 2, 17 total touchdowns and 1,399 scrimmage yards for an average of 21.93 fantasy points. And tight end Travis Kelce, he's basically a wide receiver 1, having more yards than Tyreek Hill at 1,420 and 12 total touchdowns. And then Derrick Henry, just Mr. 2K himself, 17 total touchdowns with 21.41 scrimmage yards and for an average of 20.8 fantasy points. And then obviously the defense, we got the Rams with 22 forced turnovers, 53 sacks, and 4 touchdowns. And then the kicker of the year, Jason Sanders, with 92.3% field goal and 144 fantasy points scored total. Or points scored, but for a total of 169 fantasy points, an average of 10.5 per game.
Sheesh. Yeah, my roommate actually went to a kicking camp with Jason Sanders. That's his boy. So he always mentions that when he does well.
He wasn't as hype as Koo, but he was so consistent all year. He was just a guaranteed 10, 15 points.
Yeah, he was I think number 1 or tied for number 1 with 92.3 field goal percentage and then 100% on extra points. So this boy was automatic out here, especially for a kicker. Yeah. And then tied for points scored as well, 144. But yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Coast to Coast podcast. We'll see you pretty soon for our playoff edition of the podcast. But this is Jose signing out.
Peace.